You're listening to Faces of Our Cities. I'm your host, Jesse. Today we're meeting with Jon Greenberg. John and I have never actually met before, but we connected on LinkedIn, I don't know, probably a few years back, probably back when I started thinking about first doing this podcast. And I finally reached out to him just a few weeks ago to ask him to join us, share a bit about his life experience as the president of the Milwaukee Admirals and his time at the Milwaukee Brewers, and see what kind of life hacks we can get out of him. So John, thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this. Now, I am fairly certain that you will likely one day have your own statue in Milwaukee because, from what I can tell, every article I've ever read so far about you and the research that I did about you, you love Milwaukee. You are a Milwaukee hometown boy, and it's you're one of these crazy stories. I read something about you being a Batboy for the Milwaukee Brewers and going from Batboy to the head of PR for Milwaukee during like the building of Miller Park, if I remember right. Tell me, I mean, I love Milwaukee, but like, why do you love Milwaukee so much?
Well, I obviously born and raised here. My entire family has lived here for all of their lives too, and it's just a place that I feel incredibly comfortable. And when I go to other cities, when traveling for sports or traveling for vacation, uh, whenever I come home, immediately when I get back here, I feel a lot more comfortable. And the people here, you always hear about, Wisconsin nice, Milwaukee nice, Gebik the kite, all that stuff that goes with that, and it's real, and I'm glad to be part of that. And I think, when I have people who come to Milwaukee for the first time with other teams that with visiting team presidents and things like that come in and visit, and they leave and they immediately get back. It's like, I can't believe how friendly everybody is. It's just not like that where I live. And it means a lot to me to be part of that. And, I want the best for the city, and I want to be part of, providing people with entertainment, which has been a great part of my career. And I've just been blessed to have these opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. I that the Milwaukee Nice is and the Wisconsin Nice is a real thing. I do have a regular debate about Southern hospitality versus Wisconsin Nice. Do you have an opinion on this? Which one, uh, is better? Do you think Southern hospitality
Well, of course,
wins, or do you think Midwest
yeah,
Nice is nicer?
I will always be partial to being here in Wisconsin. I certainly enjoy Southern hospitality, no question. We every year in our league, our annual meeting is in Hilton Head in South Carolina, so I get to experience a lot of that Southern hospitality, and that it is real. But I'll take Wisconsin and Milwaukee any day.
That's right, because I suppose the NHL team is Nashville, right?
That's
Like,
correct. Yep.
and
Yep.
sorry for those that are listening, the Milwaukee Admirals are the minor league team for Nashville,
That is
and
correct.
so
We're essentially like the Brewers have a AAA baseball team, which is ironically in Nashville. And then the Nashville Predators have a AAA, essentially the equivalent of AAA, which is what we are, and we're here in Milwaukee. So the American Hockey League is the second best league in the world because our players are their next step is going directly to Nashville, and
yeah.
so yeah, that's where that relationship is coming from.
I feel like you lucked out there being able to have your Southern hospitality and your Milwaukee Nice. It's a good thing, like your pro team isn't like in California or something like that. So, okay, so give us a quick breakdown. Before you were Bat Boy, did you do anything? Were you like Bat Boy was the first job you ever held, or
That was the first job, yeah, because I started that when I was 16, And uh, I had actually wanted to become a bat boy before that. I wrote a letter to Bud Selig because he was the owner of the Brewers, and who else would a kid who wants to be a bat boy write a letter to than the owner of the team? So I wrote a letter to Mr. Selig, and I was only in sixth grade when I wrote that, and I
Yeah, there's no internet, right? Like,
right
how
no
else were you
wrote
supposed to know?
right, and I wrote an actual letter though, and mailed it off, and he sent me a letter back, which I still have in my scrapbook at home, just telling me I wasn't old
Wow.
enough. Yeah, I wasn't old enough. That was back in 1980. And when I was old enough, if I was still interested, he told me who to reach out to, and I kept that letter and I referred to it regularly as the days checked off before I could be old enough to do that. And as soon as I turned 16 back in 1983, I reached out to the person he wanted me to reach out to, and it was right at the end of the baseball season. So that person had me come down and shadow the other bat boys for a day just to see if this was something I would like to do. And of course it was. I was around all my heroes back then, sitting in the locker room waiting for
Yeah.
bat boys to tell me what to do. And, Robin Yount, Paul Molitor, Raleigh Fingers, and Ted Simmons are all right there. So, it was a great thrill. It was a great thrill, and it opened up an opportunity for the next season to become a bat boy for the Brewers, which is there are not many of those, and we're a small fraternity, and some of us have gone on to do pretty well for ourselves. Bill Zito was a bat boy back with the 1982 team. He's now the general manager of the Florida Panthers.
Really? Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, Tom Flanagan was a bat boy. He's now the director of player development for the Brewers. When someday will probably be a general manager himself. So
Wow.
there's quite a few stories like that.
What is it about that like fraternity of bat boys that is this environment that sets them up for or sets you guys up for success like that? Is there something specific about
Yeah,
the program, or is it just because you're around just such a high caliber athlete that it rubs off on you? Like, what is it?
I think part of it is it took a lot to get into it. Like they're not just taking anybody to get that opportunity. You had to have really good grades. You had to be able to talk about where you're hoping your future is going to go. You had to have a plan for how you wanted to get forward after being a bat boy, because you only do that for a couple of years and then you move on in your life, because not a lot of adult bat boys running around out there. But all of us were 16 to 18, 19 years old, and um, I think we all had a plan. I mean, a lot of the guys that were with me have done very well in their careers, doing a lot of different things. One guy was running an airline for a long time. Another guy's big in the insurance businesses. The other ones that I had mentioned as well. So I think they're very picky about the people that they chose to hire to do those jobs. Responsible young men, and I was glad that I qualified.
Huh. That's awesome. What did you say you wanted to be? What were your goals and aspirations that got you the gig?
Yeah, I actually wanted to get into broadcasting. That was my kind of my first thought of what I wanted to do with a professional career. And one of the things I did back then, when a lot of guys may have gotten an autograph from a player, I certainly did that. But I have a baseball at home that's autographed by broadcasters, and it's some of the legendary broadcasters in the history of baseball, and obviously Bob Uecker, but Mel Allen, who is the voice of this week in baseball in the New York Yankees forever, Vin Scully, who everybody certainly knows. I got those guys to sign a baseball. They're all on the same ball, and so that was kind of the career direction I originally thought I wanted to do. But I got the chance to meet those people, and it was a great thrill and a privilege to do that. And then I went to college, and I realized pretty early on that radio was not the direction for me. So I switched over to journalism, and um, that's kind of where the real direction in my career started, was on the journalistic side.
Yeah, because I remember reading something about you spent like 6 semesters, something crazy, like interning for the Brewers before like internships were a thing, and how like fortunate you saw that being for you, just because in today's standards you'd have a 3 month semester and then you're done. But you got to spend quite a bit of time in the PR department during your college years. Is that fair to say? And that really
Yep,
set you
yep.
up.
That was 1987, 88, into early 1989, and I got that internship. My dad and I went to spring training, just on a vacation, and I knew I was going to be done as a bat boy. That I had done my 3 years there, and it was time for me to move on. And walked into the PR department for the Brewers and asked them if they need any help over the summer. That I was looking for an internship, and they knew me, obviously from being around from the Bat Boy work. So not that we interacted a whole lot, but they at least knew who I was. And sure enough, they needed an intern, and I learned an enormous amount there in my first semester, and then nobody else applied. So I asked if I could stay, but they said, "Well, we can't give you credit because you've already got the credits for an internship." So I said, "Well, if you can keep me on, I would love to stay." And they did, and that turned into 5 more semesters of doing that. Um, and you know, I at the same time, while I was at UW Milwaukee for my college years, and um, they had started a sports journalism class. It was the first one they had ever offered, and the teacher's name was Greg Hoffman, who was a writer from the Kenosha News. And Greg taught the class, and the first class we came in, the first assignment was, I looked around, I didn't know anybody else in the room, and the guy that was sitting next to me was Drew Olson, who was then a young fledgling reporter in the Milwaukee Journal sports department. And our first assignment was to interview each other and then write a bio about the person sitting next to you and then introduce that person to the rest of the class. And that turned into a job, actually, because Drew, while working at the paper, said they were looking for somebody to come in and do some essentially entry level work, which is what he was doing. And the only way he didn't have to do it anymore is if he could find somebody to replace himself, so he could move up and start covering games and doing bigger things, and asked me if I would be interested, and I was like, yeah, I think so. So he went. I always tell the story. He went out and made a phone call during a break in the class, on a payphone, because we didn't have cell phones back then. And he got on the payphone and he came back and said, "Hey, would you like to come in for an interview for a job in the sports department?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, "When?" And he said, "How about after class?" I mean, I'm wearing jeans and a sweatshirt. I have no
and
resume. I have nothing. And
and back
he's
then that would be expected for sure. Like by today's standards, you might get away with like no tie,
right.
but if it's in the creative world, right? Like, oh, why is this guy wearing a tie? But like back then, it's like you probably should be wearing a suit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I said, it's okay. He goes, "Trust me, it's going to be fine." So I was like, okay. So he took me down there and introduced me to the sports editor, and then the sports editor and I talked, and he asked me 3 questions in my interview. One, can you spell Oconomowoc? So I rattled that one off. Two, could I type? And I hedged my answer on that one because the typewriter and I were not really friends. But I learned how to type better for sure. But um, he then he asked me the third question, which was, if I give you a drug test, will you pass? Which I was immediately like, well, what did I have for breakfast this morning? Let's see. Is there any poppy seeds involved in my breakfast? So I went and took a drug test right there, and
Oh wow, that's awesome.
20 minutes later, he came back and he's like, "Can you start tomorrow morning?" And I was like, "Okay." So this all happened incredibly fast, and so I was interning at the Brewers, and I got this job in the Journal sports department. Um, Back when we had 2 newspapers, so the Journal was the afternoon paper, and so that meant you had to be there in the mornings to get the paper put together because it came out in the afternoon. And it was a great experience working at the paper. When I graduated, um, I had 2 job offers. I had one to stay in the Brewers PR department. I had one to join the Journal sports department full time, and
Okay.
uh, I just I chose wisely because we all know what's kind of
Yeah.
happened to the newspaper industry. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm very blessed to have had those opportunities though because you get to see it from both sides. So the PR side was something that I really had developed a passion for. The newspaper side, it's an enormous amount of hard work, and I realized they had given me an assignment one day that really cemented the job. And I walked in one day and into the Journal Sports department, and they immediately saw me coming and said, "You need to go cover the Wave soccer game." And I was like, "Why?" And they're like, "Whoever was supposed to cover it was sick, and they needed somebody to go cover this game." And it was like 2 hours before the game was going to start. And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know anything about soccer." And they're like, "Okay, well, when you get over there, their PR guy is going to meet you at the door, and he'll help you out." And his name is Peter Wilt, and Peter and I are still friends today. And Peter helped me, showed me the ropes of what I was watching, and helped me get through the game, and then took me to the locker room afterwards and showed me the right guys I wanted to interview for the story. So I was, he held my hand a little bit. I asked my own questions, and I went and wrote my story, and it was great. But it was really the light bulb moment for me because I realized that PR side was really the direction that I wanted to go
Mm.
after. So when it came time to
Yeah.
make a decision on newspaper or team side, it helped me to make that decision.
Yeah, and I'm sure it gave you a chance to really both build relationships on both sides, I'm guessing, because as a PR guy, if in PR you don't have any relationships on the other side, you're gonna struggle a little bit, I'm assuming. And I've never
100%.
been in PR, but I can imagine that if no one likes you on the other side, you're not getting the coverage that you're hoping you're getting, and and everyone's looking for just someone that they want to work with and be around, right? So to recognize, like, gosh, this PR guy was really helpful. That's what I need to. If I'm going to be in PR, I need to like make reporters' lives easy, like that guy made it for me. I'm guessing. Is
Yeah,
that fair
for
to
sure,
say?
100%, and 100%. And Drew Olson and I are still great friends, and he was in
Mm.
my wedding. We lived together for a while after college. He became the president of the Baseball Writers Association of America, while
Wild.
I was the PR guy for the Brewers. So, uh, those relationships. I mean, the second word in public relations or media relations is relations. So it's all
Yeah.
about relationship. And
Yeah.
here in this market, we always talk about small Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Milwaukee is it's a big city, but it's a small town feel, and everybody knows everybody. So it's
Yep.
about building those relationships and enhancing them, and taking the time not to always be asking for something. That's always
Right.
been a big reason for big thing for me is sometimes I just want to go out and have a beer or just get on the phone and just catch up. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be about, hey, I need
Work.
you to do a story, or I got this guy that you should do a story about.
Right. Right. Yeah. Doing a little giving, not just taking, for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Any lessons that you learned during that time at Milwaukee Brewers, in working in such a difficult environment, and not difficult as in like the organization, but just like Major League Baseball, it's under a lot of scrutiny when a season's not going well. I'm sure everyone's on edge when things aren't going well. How did you navigate that environment?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Well, my journey there. So I got hired out of college as a publicity assistant, which is the third person in the department. There was a director, an assistant director, and then me. A couple of years in, that assistant director, there was some restructuring, and he became in charge of publications, so yearbooks, game programs, magazine, things like that. So his focus shifted. They slid me up into the assistant director's role. I stayed in that part for 3 years, and then, unfortunately, the baseball strike happened, back in 1994, and it was a strike that lasted about 8.5 months, and it cost people their jobs. And one of the people, unfortunately, that lost their job was my boss. Um, so the director's job was open. Frankly, I was making less money. So, in order to, and people liked the work that I was doing. I think they saw something in me and realized that there was some potential there for me to have that position and do a good job with it. But I got taught by my bosses back then, Tom Skybosh and Mario Zeno, uh, that you never know who's watching you. So always do a good job, always be professional, always be available. Um, and, you know, I took that to heart. Whether I was getting to meet PR people from other teams, um, national writers who were coming in, that sort of thing. Obviously, we had some managerial changes with our managers over the time, and um, developing good relationships with them, so they could feel comfortable that when I was around, that I was somebody that they could trust. Uh, those types of things were things that I learned, and then my last boss at the Brewers, Laurel Preeb, uh, gave me this phrase, which I drop on people over here all the time: act big league, look big league, be big league. So it's how you carry yourself. And, when people have respect for you, they'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And when you trust them and they trust you, then that's how things really develop over time. Um, Positive relationships help you get through negative things on a regular basis. So if our media, if we weren't playing very well, you had to really work hard with your media and with uh, people to see that there are a lot of good things that happen within our organization. Yeah, the winning isn't happening enough, but the fan experience is going well. People really are still enjoying coming to the ballpark and watching the team play. Um, yes, at the major league level, winning is paramount, but at the end of the day, one of the things I carried with me from there to here was it's all about whether people are enjoying themselves. And you can't guarantee that your team's going to play well every night. Some nights are going to be more exciting than others. But the key is on those nights when maybe it's a little flat, how have I entertained you so that you feel comfortable or that you've spent your money wisely and you want to come back and do it again?
Despite if it's a slow game and maybe we didn't score at all, like did you still have a good
Yeah,
time? Yeah.
right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you leave it all up to the baseball players, you might not have any fans left. Fans come and go, yeah, what can you control? Moving into Milwaukee Admirals, you're president now of the Milwaukee Admirals. That being a minor league team, I can imagine that mindset is even more important than in Major League Baseball, because you don't get to really have much of a choice of who's on your team. People are getting sent back and forth probably somewhat regularly. It's hard to like build a fan base around like a key player.
Yeah, we don't market players, um,
Yeah.
which is very opposite of a normal sports team, right? We'll
Hmm.
market that's a hockey player, but it's not that hockey player because
Yep.
that hockey player may be gone. Um, like you said, it could be here today and gone tomorrow, which we've had
Yep.
happen. I mean, we've had guys who have
Yep.
been here for a week and then we never
Yep.
see them again. And my
Yep.
thing that I always tell players is, I hope when you get called up, I never see you again. And that's not a negative thing, right? That's a positive
Yeah.
thing that they've been nurtured here and they developed here, and now they're going on to live their dream as an NHL player. And we want them to have had such a positive experience here that they think fondly of Milwaukee as part of their journey. Um, and when we go to visit them in Nashville, from time to time, that warmth is still there. When we see them, we're excited to see them, and we hope they're excited to see us too. But
Yeah.
we don't market players. We market the Admirals experience, And that experience is 36 nights, 36 different shows. So every night is a different experience. If you're a full season ticket holder, we don't want you to see the same show twice. So, on a night where we lose 4-1 and we don't have a whole lot of positive going on, again, we want you to walk out feeling like, wow, I had a good time. I'm sorry you didn't win. that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of the thought process there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, okay, I'm going to pivot just a tiny bit here, and I'm going to breeze over a little bit that you went from head of PR to becoming the president of the Milwaukee Admirals. I know from what I've read, it was a phone call you weren't expecting, and it turned into this really great opportunity. I'm really curious about, I guess, what it is about your leadership style that maybe you think the owners of the Milwaukee Admirals saw in you, that they thought this is our guy to be the president of our team. What, because it was during an ownership change, right? Where you became the new president. What is it? What is it about your style that made people want you to be there?
Well, Harris Tur is our owner here. He's also the second largest investor in the Milwaukee Brewers. So he knew my
Mm-hmm.
work from my time in baseball. He was looking when he was going to buy the team uh, for somebody with PR marketing background. He wanted somebody who could quickly develop those relationships with the media, somebody who knew what they were doing from that side of this. And he felt like I had the skill set and the energy to do that. And um, it's been a really amazing experience because we came here and there were only 4 employees on the staff. The organization was very close to dead. If Harris didn't buy the team, I'm not sure there would have been an Admirals anymore. And so we came in and basically had a blank canvas. You only have 4 employees. You really are starting from almost like an expansion franchise, but we were starting like an expansion franchise that had 40 years of history. Yeah. So it was a great opportunity to put my stamp on this and be able to do it the way I kind of had been brought up. And I would tell you that the C-League ownership of the Brewers taught me so much about how to run a team and how to treat people. Um, that family style business model, which is so different than really it is now. I mean, it's a much more corporate environment. Here, we still try to operate this as a family style organization. So,
What can you explain what that means when you say a family style organization?
yeah, so basically, we aren't. We go through every battle together. There's no silos here. There's no corporate like, okay, the marketing department is over here and they're going to do their thing, and the ticket sales department's over here and they're going to do their thing. And it's not like that here. It's all everybody in it together. And we have a thing saying here about rowing the boat. We all row the boat at the same speed, and that's how we get to where we're going. As soon as we start to steer off to the side or somebody's not um, somebody needs help rowing their part of the boat, everybody will jump in and do that. So it's all about doing things together as a group, which is different, I think, than more of a corporate type of management style. There's nothing here that I won't do. There are things I'm not capable of doing, but there's nothing here that I won't do. So like if somebody needs me to pull a ticket off the ticketing system, I have no idea how to do that. So, but if you need me to take tickets and run them, to somebody else in town or run them across the building to somebody, give them to me. I'll go do it. So whether it's me or Harris, our owner, or anybody else, like we're all in this together, and that's kind of that family thing. We're all here trying to do this together. We spend a lot of time together, right? We always tell people when you work in sports, you spend a lot of time with your second family, which is the people in your office, and that's how we're successful. I think it's one of the reasons we'll be able to keep a lot of our people together for a long time. It's not we're not typical for a minor league team to have the seniority of the staff that we have here. We've got people who've been with us the whole time, and some people
Okay.
the people who we got when we first came here are still here, except for one who retired. So it's the guy. My corporate sales guy has been here for 41 years. It's
Wow.
not typical, and
Yeah. Well, in case in point, you've been there for over 15?
19 years now. Yep.
19, yeah.
So that's just kind of the mindset of the family side versus the kind of just corporate side. I mean, we're all obviously we have numbers we're trying to reach, and we're like a business. We're a regular business. It's just how we operate.
How did having that family style business mindset help or hurt you during a time like COVID? And I know we're all sick of talking about COVID, but I'm really curious. While everyone was laying off people and like no one was going to professional sporting events, what did that mean for you and all your employees?
Well, we are blessed here to have Harris Tour as our owner. It would have been very easy for him to tell me I have to lay people off um, during COVID because there were so many restrictions by how we could have played games here. We could have played, but we would have been playing in front of empty buildings. So we would have been piling up expense and everything else. And we just chose to uh, not play. We were one of three teams in our league that chose not to play. Other people were playing in practice buildings and playing in their big building in front of nobody, and just so that the players could continue to develop. Nashville agreed that they would be able to find a place to put their players. So in those some of those other situations, they kind of spread them out just to make sure those guys continue to develop. And they respected the fact that we weren't going to be able to do it and understood why we couldn't play. But at the same time, Harris was steadfastly in the corner of our employees, kept everybody on through all of that full-time salary, full-time staff, full benefits, salary, everything else. And the reason that he wanted to do that, and I was totally supportive of this as well, is we knew we were going to come out of it, right? So at some point, this is going to end. And when it does end, we want to have an experienced staff here that is ready to go. And they were able; those people still stayed in touch with season ticket holders. They still stayed in touch with sponsors. We still did a lot of the things that we needed to do to keep our business going. I mean, we were able to come out of that renewing over 90% of our season ticket holders after a year where we didn't play. So, having the right people in the right seats here was critical to making that happen. If we'd have let people go and had all of a sudden have to rehire or find new people to take those jobs, I don't think we are anywhere near having that type of success. And having a leader like Harris to, support us and make that commitment to us, and was just critical. And we had a call every Tuesday with our staff on Teams, and it was a chance just so that we could all see each other's faces again. Because we essentially went about 6 months before we started bringing people back to the office in some form. Um, but you know, it was just people liked working together. People wanted to stay. People really appreciated the fact that Harris was doing this for them, and it gave us a chance to have great success coming out, which we did.
Okay, so you've been there 19 years now, and you've won at least twice. Most recently, I think it was last year, you won like Executive of the Year award, I believe, and back in 2007. Obviously, weathered some storms and weathered good seasons and bad seasons, and have this wealth of experience for our audience. You come with so much experience. Could you share maybe a couple of life hacks? I know that you've you've got kids, or at least a daughter that I'm aware
Yeah.
of. One daughter. You're married, and so when you think about your whole life, are there certain things that you do in your daily routine that you're like, this has made a big impact? Maybe it's eating a specific diet you do, or maybe it's something you do every morning that's really helped you that you're willing to share and let others see if it works for them.
This is going to sound really, really wild. I have a feeling. So every day, first thing I do is I wake up and put on Leave It to Beaver. So it's I've been watching that show forever, and I just think a lot of a lot of the messages that come through that show
Okay.
are still completely accurate today. They may be 1960s uh, type of things, but like just the way that people should treat each other, the life lessons that are taught on that show, um, that is uh, that is something that like is important to me. That I probably have seen every single episode at least 25 times, but I still wake up every morning and it's on MeTV here in Milwaukee, and I watch. It's on two episodes back to back, and that's how I start my day every day. Have my breakfast watching Leave It to Beaver, and I had the opportunity to meet both Jerry Mathers and Ken Osmond, who played Eddie Haskell. Uh, that we actually had them at games quite a while ago as like celebrity appearances, and I told them that, and they just kind of looked at me like, well, they really appreciated the fact that I said that, but they were a little surprised that this grown up guy was saying such a thing, but it really is like it just gets me off to a really good start every day, and
I love that.
uh, it just makes me think about like the right way to do things, so
Huh.
um, whether for me, like, certainly believe in the treat others the way you want to be treated, and I want everybody here to do the same thing. Um, be a friendly organization, be a friendly leader, be a servant leader. Those types of things are really important to me, and
Mm.
yeah, Leave It to Beavers had a big role in that.
That's awesome. You're right. I think people are going to be like, "What do you mean you don't like start your day working out or making your bed?" You're like, "Nope, leave it to Beaver. That's what's
Yeah.
up." I love that. I personally have never seen Leave It to Beaver, but
Oh no.
I've heard about it. I've always heard about it. Without getting into it, I grew up overseas, so I didn't have it growing
Oh,
up.
gotcha.
Uh,
Okay.
but I've always heard about it. My parents have talked about it before, so I'll have to try this next time I'm in Milwaukee. What about from a like leadership or management perspective? If let's go with like you got somebody who's maybe just starting to manage people. If you could sit down and have coffee with them and just be this person who has nothing to gain, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I guess I would say is just be yourself first of all. Don't feel like you need to read a bunch of books and then be the book. Be who you are, right? It's one of the things I've taught a couple of people here who will read sales books voraciously, and I applaud that for sure. But then when you're done with the book, how do you internalize what's in that book? Don't spit the book back at me, right? So make it yourself. Um, be who you are. You've gotten to the place where you are because of who you are. It's not because of something else. Like if I hire somebody here, I want to hire somebody genuinely. I don't want to hire somebody who then comes in a month later, or a month later is like not the person I hired. So um, also, I would say know who your people are that you're managing. Um, know who, like, if they're married, what's their wife's name? Who, if they have kids, what are the kids' names? What do they like to do for fun? What do they, I've got a guy here who loves to go camping. I've got a guy here who loves to go hunting. I love, it's things that you can just have conversations with them that don't involve the work. get to know your people. I think that's really important. And for me, it's also have an open door policy and be available for your people. They should know that they can always come in and talk to you and um, listen to them, listen to what they tell you, figure out a way to help. Here it's all about, like, we take creative ideas from everybody, whether it's an intern or the owner, like, and everybody in between. Um, they have creative ideas. Come in and feel comfortable that you're going to be able to share an idea and not get laughed out of the room. It's not going to, your idea might be funny, which is good, but it's not necessarily like, you know, what I also tell people, I guess, just to go back to that, is when you come in and you have an idea, make sure it's well thought out. Don't just come in and say, "Hey, I have this idea," and then I ask you two questions and you don't have an answer for it, right? I'm all for new ideas, but be prepared when you want to share them. And if you are, then I'm more than willing to give something a chance. And you never know. Maybe we try something and it doesn't work, but maybe we look at it and say, "Gee, if we did it this way, maybe it's better the next time we try it." But I don't want to ever have people feel like an idea that they share isn't getting a full listening to, as long as they come in prepared to share it.
Well, John, thank you so much for your time. I honestly, I really, really do appreciate it. It's been really nice to get to know you, and I really hope that the listeners enjoy the conversation as well. I reached out to you on LinkedIn. I almost feel like it was too easy to reach out to you on LinkedIn, but thank you. And I hope you don't get too much spam from listeners thinking like, sweet, I'll just connect to John on LinkedIn. But for those listening, Jon Greenberg is on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to track him down. And it is funny, like the post that you make, I think your last post was something about how appreciative you were of everyone that's helped you out throughout your career. Not something I normally see from an exec in general. And so I really appreciated that last post that you had on LinkedIn, just recognizing all the people, big and small, that have gotten you to where you're at. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And if people follow me on LinkedIn because they heard this, make sure you put in your LinkedIn request that it's because you listened to this. Here's a way we can get some metrics out of this, Jesse.
There you go. That works. That's perfect.